The government of Borno State has a plan.
Good afternoon. I came to brief Mr. President on the efforts made by Borno State government in ensuring the return of internally displaced persons to their ancestral homes.
A plan to wean all displaced persons of aid by resettling them back to their communities. And even though human rights organizations advised against this action, the government still went ahead with it. Despite the secrecy on the budgetary allocation and lack of transparency in the resettlement program, hundreds of millions from the government and international partners continue to go into the program. At the heart of this mission is the Borno State's RRR Ministry, the Ministry of Reconstruction, Rehabilitation and Resettlement. The ministry is responsible for the entire resettlement of IDPs, and it gets its funding from grants as well as an annual budget allocation. Let's see how well or poorly they have utilized the money allocated to them. In 2022, 26,501,545,000 naira was allocated to the ministry. 1 billion naira out of the total allocated funds was supposed to be channeled towards construction/provision of housing. Was that money appropriately utilized? Let's see. IDPs have continued to complain that the resettlement houses, which were constructed in some of the communities, are barely enough to contain all of them, and many of the facilities are substandard. In Shuwari, for example, one of the resettlement sites where displaced persons are stationed after they were abruptly evacuated from an IDP camp, the shelter was inadequate. HumAngle visited the Shuwari resettlement site in February and observed that the resettlement site, which was supposed to house the IDPs in regular buildings, had a semblance of a typical displacement camp. This is because the constructed houses had been filled up on a first-come basis by IDPs, while the rest had to set up tents made of tarpaulin and wood, akin to what obtained in an IDP camp. Others in places like Malam Faturi, located in the headquarters of the Abadam local government area of the state, are struggling to survive in tents with little access to basic amenities, and the threat of terrorism still hovers around. 2022 approved budget for livelihood support to households and vulnerable people is 6,145,802,000 naira. The story with these livelihood support funds is no different from the funds for reconstruction. As of December 2021, the government had reportedly handed out more than 1 billion naira for livelihood support. It said that it was giving men 100,000 naira and 50,000 naira to women. But there are several accounts of IDPs not receiving all the money that had been supposedly given to them. In January, some IDPs told HumAngle that they had received 20,000 and had not been given the remainder of the monies, even though the government had promised to give it to them. HumAngle reached out to Mustafa Gubiu, the Commissioner of Reconstruction, Rehabilitation and Resettlement, to find out why the IDPs were yet to receive these monies. He did not respond. Who is to be held accountable for this? Their condition has become so dire that some of them have resorted to serving as middlemen to ISWAP. Fadmatu Saidu, a local NGO worker, shed some light on the matter. You need to visit the camp before you can appreciate the plight of the people. It's an understatement to say that there is no food. There are people starving. Some cannot even recall the last time they cooked something in their homes. It is pathetic. The reality surrounding the resettlement of IDPs in Borno State is fraught with secrecy, cover-ups, and communication gaps between desperate citizens that have endured years of violence and state officials who are supposed to protect them. This is part 10 of our video series explaining insecurity drivers in northern Nigeria. We're breaking down major indicators of violent conflict and covering the communities most impacted by it. With support from the MacArthur Foundation, HumAngle is working to strengthen investigative and data-driven journalism in order to reduce corruption.